Stop compromising. I cannot stand, Boo, when people are like, well, this is my life. I guess I'm going to go to a job 33% of my life, and it's going to suck every single day. You know how insane that sounds? And that's just the choice that you're making. Because somewhere along the line, you thought I can only do so much.
Who doesn't want to be a great leader? A leader who's calm under pressure, insightful, respected, well-liked. But what does it take to become a great leader? Hey, I'm Boo, and welcome to my podcast. The Few Leadership Podcast defines great leadership and what great leadership looks like. And I've found some of the world's best leaders or experts in the field of leadership to help you accelerate your leadership journey so you can be an ace at the game of leadership. If you're ready to rethink everything you know about leadership, if you're excited about accelerating your leadership journey, let's strap in and ignite your leadership potential.
Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of The Few. Today, we're going to do a deep dive on you and your role in becoming a great leader. We often see this theme recurring when we talk about The Few. It's the ability to take accountability, ability to understand yourself, and you can't really have expectations of others until you've established the expectations for yourself. Before we start, though, remember to like the podcast, leave a comment, leave a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, jump over to YouTube and watch the video. So today we're speaking to JM Ryerson, who is one of the world's leading experts on leadership. And I love the fact that he's in the leadership space addressing the ridiculous speed of the world today. JM, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Brother, good to be here. Thanks for having me. I have a bit of podcast intro envy, dude. That thing was really good, by the way. Kudos to you or your team, whoever put that together. That was awesome.
Awesome, mate. Yeah, it's always the way, right? Surround yourself with good people and a good team, and the details look after themselves. Hey, JM, you've been successful in your own right. Let's Go Win is your platform. You've started some businesses, sold a few businesses. Tell me the biggest thing right now that leaders are struggling with from your perspective.
I think just being their authentic selves is the biggest challenge I'm watching. It's so interesting because when people think of leadership, they have this concept and you think you have to sound a certain way, look a certain way. And the truth is the best leader is the most authentic being that you are. Now, that doesn't come like you can't do work on yourself. You actually need to pour into yourself so you can show up as the best version of you. But to your question, Boo, I guess, we'll call you Boo. It's one of those things where when you don't show up authentically, people see right through it. And I think, as you said, in the world that's moving so fast, we gravitate towards people that can truly show up in their authentic self in that really vulnerable way, but very few people seem to be able to do that. So that's what I'm passionate about, man. I've been working on this concept of self, and it's been fun because I'm seeing a lot of simple tweaks that are providing massive value to themselves and to their organizations.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's a little bit like, when you're in your teenage years and you're dating and you're not sure how to show up to this person, and people always say, hey, just be yourself. Yet it seems that that's really hard for a lot of us to kind of understand, like, who we are. I remember reading a few months ago an article that said 69 or 70% of people under the age of 23 prefer their virtual identity than their real identity. What is it about ourselves and coming to terms with ourselves, being comfortable with ourselves? What is it that just stops us from getting there?
Well, we're conditioned, brother, early on, I want to say 5th, 6th, 7th grade, that you want to fit in. And often that means I'm going to put on a mask so people accept me and that I show up in the way that people expect me to. Well, the problem with that is those masks, they're meant for parties, man. They're not meant for real life. And yet, so often people put those masks on and they go to work every day. They get into relationships, not truly being who they are. And so they're actually more used to being this shell of a version of themselves instead of just showing up authentically in what they love, in how they like to operate. And it takes some work to actually get quiet, be clear on what I really do appreciate in life, what I value in life, how I want to show up in this world, because through our formative years, we were constantly not showing up in that version. So when you actually put in the work and you find that authentic self, when you find that this is what I want, it becomes really easy, but you got to be willing to pour into that self first. So it's simple, and yet very few people spend the time to actually get there until, I don't know, it varies per person, but I will say even at 46, I'm very clear on who I am, and yet I'm still self-discovering more and more how I want to be the most free and authentic version of me.
Yeah, it's I have kids at 18, 15, and 3, and it's really fascinating, watching each of them with how the world wants them to show up. I mean, my 3-year-old comes back from daycare, and like you just see these personality traits, and his big thing now when he gets angry or doesn't get what he wants is he says, I don't love you, and you're not my friend, you know that's only coming from one place, right? Which is school. And my 15-year-old daughter, and the pressure that is on a young woman these days in terms of how they need to show up in the guise of all the Instagram influencers. And fortunately, my 18-year-old son is one of those people that's just themselves, man. They just don't care. And we remember those kids at school, right? The weird ones, and everyone's like, man, they're weird. And they got in there kind of early on. Clearly, one of the pathways to get there is the old midlife crisis, right? Or the hitting rock bottom. Do you think that is a essential part of being able to discover who you really are? Do you need that moment, or do you think that we could just figure it out through? I mean, I'm trying to phrase this question in a way. So there's growth mindset and fixed mindset, right? So a lot of people are that conversation. I am who I am. I'm not this person. I'm not that person. And there's other people that are always like, I'll give it a go. I'll try. Is that something that's natural, or can it be manufactured?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love that you brought up the kids, because your oldest son, I think you said, who is just genuinely, that's who he is. That's uncommon for the most part. So to answer your question, midlife crisis, that was me, brother. Like, I hit 32, I want to say. And yeah, man, my wife and I were separated for a year, and I wasn't really happy with the people I was surrounding myself with. And yet I continued to show up in a way that I thought the world wanted me to be. That was when I said, enough is enough. Fortunately, I will say for my kids, they've said the exact same affirmation every single day of their life, because I wanted them to truly know that they are these things. And so I've watched my youngest son since he was a baby. He was like your older boy. He doesn't really give a crap about what anybody else thinks. This is just who he is. My older son is a little less maybe out there being that way, but he's completely comfortable in his skin. And I think in large part it's because every single night before they go to bed, we did the same exact affirmation saying that they are, these amazing human beings. And so it allowed them to know my self-worth starts inside. It has nothing to do with outside influences. So I will say for my wife and I, we did a great job doing that for them. I wasn't raised that way. And it wasn't like my parents didn't tell me I wasn't great or give me these affirmations, but they didn't know some of the growth mindset stuff. They didn't know this. And so I will say for my kids, and I'm sure for yours, you're giving them tools that they didn't have before, because we didn't know all this stuff. We didn't know how important it was to truly be your authentic self, to do these affirmations, to do meditation and yoga and breath work. My son has been doing that since he was 14. He's 18 now. I can't wait to see what he looks like at 44. I mean, it's going to be awesome to see how much these kids rise. And so I guess I'm shamefully patting my wife and I on the back, but we did learn these lessons, and we wanted them to have a better life than what we did.
Is there is there a balance there? Some kids can get so wound up in self-awareness that the doing side of life kind of takes a back seat, and there's so much anticipatory thought without action that you build more anxiety, right? You build more fear about the future. Where's that balance between, self-awareness and being a kid?
Yeah, it's a good question, man, because and being a kid is such a arbitrary term anymore, because certainly I imagine the way you were raised, the way I was raised, there wasn't a lot of supervision, man. It was go out, come back when it's dark. You kind of figured life out on your own, which meant sometimes some good, some bad, but that's where I think we started to want to fit in. I will say for my kids, at least, they were more protected. My wife was like, she was a typical parent that they weren't able to go swim in the pool by themselves at, 12 years old, which is to me crazy, but that was the way it was. But I will also say we talked about some of their fears. We talked about their anxieties. We talked about their dreams. My parents and I weren't having those conversations, right? My kids and I, we are open about everything, whether it's about sex or whether it's about sports or it's about, there's no item that's not on the table that we can talk about and say, you know what? It's perfectly natural for you to be feeling this way. My parents did a great job, but I didn't have that outlet at that time. And so as I figured it out along the way, I made some great choices and I made some really bad ones. I think the curated version for my kids, it wasn't as much freedom for them, and yet they were able to arrive at, this is what really matters to me, a little earlier than certainly my wife or I did.
But what about the bad things? I mean, I learned a lot from the bad things. Like I was mercilessly bullied at school, right? My name is Boo now because my last name is Bakusa. So, and in Australia, we had a term called wog and wop if you were from, Mediterranean heritage. And we had a mass immigration in the 40s and 50s, just after the Second World War, where we had an enormous amount of migration from Italy and Greece. And for me, and a bunch of other kids like me, being very wiry and skinny and dark skinned, we were constantly mocked. I didn't like it at the time, but sometimes I think now that it built a mental toughness in me. With all of the awareness, where does the mental toughness come in?
Yeah, so I'll get the great example is my youngest son was being bullied, and he said, Dad, this kid he called me fat. And I said, okay, well, what'd you say? And he repeated back the affirmation, which here's what it sounds like. I say every night, are you a leader? He says, yes. I say, why? He goes, I'm confident, strong, intelligent, athletic, good-looking, dynamic, popular, talented, independent boy with a growth mindset. And I said, okay, so that's what you told the bully? He's like, yeah. I said, what'd the bully say? He said, he didn't know what to say. And so I guess what I would say is, yes, some of these tough things, I don't want to protect my kids. I watch my kids struggle in sports all the time. My one son plays D1 tennis now, but I watched him be the smallest kid out there and get his rear end just kicked, and I didn't give him a shoulder to cry on. I just said, all right, let's get back up and do it again. So I think as a parent, you want your kids to fail. Failing is a good thing. You don't always want to give them, everyone gets first place. I'm not that dad, man. I believe in a meritocracy. I believe in people get, first place. There's a reason they got first place. They were the hardest worker. They were the most talented, whatever the thing is, I'm cool with it. And so I do think in this world of everyone gets a trophy, I'm not a fan of that because that's not the way the world works. Falling down is really important, but I want to give my kids tools too to say, okay, you got knocked down. Here's why you're going to get back up again. Here's why this is good for you. And so again, we open these conversations, say, hey man, yeah, you lost and you absolutely got destroyed. I'm sure you're feeling a little foolish right now. Wear it, own it, and don't let it happen again, or at least do your best so it doesn't. And so we're having those conversations so that, I'm not there to protect them, but I am there to talk them through some of these things that perhaps I didn't have that outlet when I was a bit younger.
If you're enjoying the show, I'd just like to ask of you a little favor. We're on a mission here to ignite the world's leadership potential. We need to reach out to as many leaders as we possibly can. So if you're enjoying the show, I just ask you to leave a review, to subscribe, to help introduce this podcast to other leaders to join you on your journey to flawless leadership. We're going to head back to the episode now. I hope you've enjoyed what you've learned today. Please remember, let's ignite a movement of flawless leaders. Subscribe, leave a review. Let's get back to the show.
Now, let's transition that into grown-ups, right? Into the adult world. Yeah, I have a perspective which is our decision-making and the way we process emotion doesn't change much from when we're a teenager to when we're an adult. We're just conditioned to mask it a lot better. What is it about adulthood and self-awareness and fear of asking the silly questions, fear of putting I'm not a big fan of uninformed opinion. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe the world exists where everyone gets an opinion just because they're a human being, particularly if the opinion is just ill-informed. But what is a way in which an adult can appreciate their conditioning and then begin to deconstruct it?
Yeah, I agree with you that the majority of people, when let's say they're not succeeding in relationships, well, you can pretty much point back to some childhood trauma that they have not addressed. At the end of the day, we all have a form of trauma that we went through. And so what I would say to that is if people aren't showing up in a way that they love, that they don't feel successful, more than likely we can dig deep and find out what happened at 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever the age is. And we haven't actually addressed that challenge. So I'm a huge fan of looking back, dealing with whatever that may have been, and then upgrading. That's why I wrote the third book. My book is called Upgrade, because for 20 years I was coaching people on trying to change them. Well, boo, guess what, man? People don't like change. Big shock. Here we go. People don't like change. But here's what I do know. People love to upgrade, man. They will upgrade their cell phone every single year and they won't think twice about it. But if I go to try and change someone, oh, dude, they're going to fight like tooth and nail. So when I'm working, whether it's coaching my kids or the executives I work with or some of the professional athletes, I'm never trying to change anybody. But what I will try and look at is, hey, can we upgrade in this way? And it's amazing, boo, how people will be like, oh, actually, that sounds pretty good. It's the same damn thing, by the way. Change and upgrade are literally the same thing. But when you change that wording, it's amazing how people are like, yeah, man, I'm pretty interested in that. That has shifted my entire coaching career. It has shifted the way I work with businesses. They're doubling and tripling the revenue so much faster because I shifted that word from change to upgrade.
And how do you do it? I mean, with a mobile phone, you hit the button, it upgrades. It would be nice if it was the same as a human. So in what way does one upgrade? How do you do it?
Yeah, great question. So I'll give you the most basic answer. You actually take care of yourself first before anyone else. So the most basic thing I coach on is taking care of your mind, your body, and your soul every single morning before you go whatever hat you're going to wear. You're going to be an employer, you're going to be an employee, you're going to be a dad, a brother, whatever hat you're wearing, you need to fill your bucket first before you go do that. Now, I will tell you that my process, my morning, it's a long routine. I know it's way too long for most people. So I literally coach people on 15 minutes. I want for 5 minutes, fill your mind with something positive, whether that's doing, listen to a podcast like this or reading a book. Just challenge your mind a little bit. Move the body. Everybody's heard that. My easy example is just go sweat once a day. That's all you need to do. And then ultimately for your soul, that's more of a personal thing. That could be walking on the beach. You're in Miami, that might be there. If I'm from Montana, maybe go, hike a mountain. You could read the Bible. You could do, for me, it's meditation. But find something that fills those 3 buckets before you step into anything else you're going to do. When you do that, now you're going to start to pour from a full cup or full bucket. Well, that's going to allow you the energy to then do some self-reflection, kind of dive deep on where can I maybe grow in certain areas, but you got to start with that self, man. You got to take care of you first before you start taking care of anyone else.
It comes back to that love thyself before you love others, right? There's that whole story. And I think, it's There's an interesting type of person who spends a lot of time helping other people and a righteousness there, but at the same time underinvest in themselves, almost like it's an excuse to not face the demons is a big word, but to not there's a lot of people that have a low opinion of themselves, right? And it's become conditioned. It's almost like they don't even aware of it. Low self-esteem, bad behavioral decisions based on having a low opinion of yourself. Given that that's kind of hard to diagnose and you're justifying the behaviors, let's say you're around someone like that. You said you're around some people that maybe weren't the best influence on you, right? How can you influence someone that's in an environment that's not good for them? Or is this just literally a self-paced learning journey where there's nothing you can do? They've got to figure it out for themselves, and you just step back in there when they've got their life sorted out?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a big question, by the way, because I will tell you, I'll take a group of people. I'm going to generalize for a second. Every single female client that I have, I ask the same question to. What did you do for yourself this morning? And their answer, Boo, will be kids, the house, the dog, the car, the email. Like, it's a litany of stuff. And I said, stop. I asked you, what did you do for you? And the problem is they don't have an answer of, I'm actually taking care of me first, because in their mind, I have this maternal instinct. I'm going to take care of everyone else first. Well, the problem with that is there's a real shelf life to how long you can do that at. And virtually every mom I know has this like innate thing to care for everyone else. And what I would tell them is, look, that's the most selfish thing you can do, because you can't be there long term. You can't pour from an empty cup. So the first thing I would tell them to do is, we're going to just set up a basic routine for you. And again, it doesn't have to be long, 15 minutes. The other thing we need to do is a bit of self-reflection. And again, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling, whether it's just, really sitting and being quiet with yourself, you know the answers. You know what you really love in life. You know what scares the living daylights out of you. You know what your goals and aspirations are. But are you willing to actually sit down and just be quiet for a second? And the best example I can give you, I literally created Let's Go Win based on a 3-day silent meditation where I had a jug of water, a tent, and me on a mountain. That was it. No food, literally no books, no writing, just me and my thoughts. Well, Let's Go Win had actually been created back when I was 20 years old. I wrote about it, got about it. And then I have all this stuff going on. When I quieted my mind, I got very clear on what my purpose is, which is what Let's Go Win represents today. And so that's what I would tell people is let's just give yourself that time. And it doesn't have to be a 3-day silent retreat. That would scare the living daylights out of most people. So maybe we just give ourselves 5 minutes a day. Why don't you give yourself 30 minutes of just quiet time with your thoughts? And I know, like, my mom would be a great example. That scares her to death because I'm not good at meditation, quote unquote. I'm like, Mom, if you can observe your thoughts, you're great at it. Because that's all you really need to do to get clear on, what do I want in life? What scares me? What are my dreams? All these things that are going through our head. So again, Boo, it's a big question, but I hope people hear that. Give yourself the grace of 5 minutes of quiet time per day and just be with those thoughts.
Yeah, it's powerful. And it's harder and harder to do with this always on culture. And it's just easy to feed the beast and just sit there and scroll to fill in that time, right? Rather than be intentional. So if you were to go back, JM, to that 20-year-old version of yourself when you first conceptualized Let's Go Win, what are one or two things you would have told yourself then that would have been useful for your journey to today?
There's two big ones, brother. One is I would welcome people into my life continuously. I remember, brother, at about 28 or 29, I said what I'm about to say, which it makes me gives me a physical reaction. I said, I don't need any more friends. At 28 years old, there's 8 billion people in the world, and I have all the friends I want in the world. That's insane. So I would tell my 20-year-old self, continue to always be open to new people, new experiences. There's so much of this world to learn. That's one. The second thing, I would absolutely, history repeats itself. When you have an elder, somebody that's older than you, listen. Shut your mouth. Just maybe ask a question and let them speak about their life, their experiences. There's so much to be gained. And I don't really believe in regrets, but I will say, losing my dad a couple of years ago, there's so many questions I want to ask him that I can't now. My grandparents, same thing. And so if I could go back to that 20-year-old self, I'd say, dude, welcome people into your life from now until whenever your day is done, because you're going to meet amazing, interesting human beings from all walks of life. And absolutely listen to elders, because they can teach you so much. They can help you stay away from the hot stove a little bit if you're just willing to put your ego aside and just listen. Those would be the two big ones for me.
Awesome, mate. As we've only got a few minutes left here, like just really at the crux of it, right? Let's define a persona here. Let's define 30 to 35, where you've still got plenty of runway. You can do anything you want, right? In that age bracket, and you've hit beige, right? You're a woman or a man. You're married. Your kids are no longer hands-on. They're in elementary school, and there's risk to jump off where you are now. There's a complacency that becomes resident in your life because you're just going to grind it out till your kids leave school. What is one thing? I appreciate that 5 minutes of reflection. I appreciate you finding time for yourself. But what is the one thing that can trigger awareness to get to that phase that everyone listening to this podcast, you would have them do immediately after this episode?
Dare to dream. Look, at 30, I hear people all the time, well, I'm 40, so you don't have dreams anymore? I'm 50. You're not on this planet very long. You may as well enjoy the ride and stop compromising. I cannot stand, when people are like, well, this is my life. I guess I'm going to go to a job 33% of my life, and it's going to suck every single day. You know how insane that sounds? And that's just a choice that you're making, because somewhere along the line, you thought I can only do so much, or I went to school for this, therefore this is my path. That is such BS. Dare to dream and go for it. You don't want to be on your deathbed and looking back and saying, gosh, I wish I had. In fact, there's a great book. You know what I'll say? There's a book by Bronnie Ware. She's a Australian. The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Read that book, and you will absolutely have the perspective that you need to say, holy cow, I don't need to go to another board meeting. That's awful. I don't need to do anything other than breathe, eat, have some shelter over me. Like, there's some basic stuff. The rest of it, go live, man. Dare to dream. So, yeah, I hope if any 30, 35, 40, 60-year-old is listening, it is never too late. That is absolute nonsense that we've been taught and conditioned. It is never too late to dream and to go absolutely pursue those dreams. So that would be, I guess, for that, I'm passionate about this, that you can go win in life. That's why my company exists. Like, you have the ability, just make a different choice.
Awesome, JM. And that's jmletsgowin.com. Hey, mate, thanks so much for sharing those insights with the few. Really appreciate your generosity. And, it really does come back to you at the end of the day. That is the ultimate answer to every question. Why do I feel this way? Why is it not working? Why? Bing. It's me. Now I can do something about it. You're a legend, mate. Thanks again, JM. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, don't forget, folks, reach out to JM. All of his notes, where you can find him, books, links are down below in the show notes. Like us, share us, review us, whatever you do, help us maintain momentum and get the people on the show that'll help you become one of the few.